Well, Jim, as we said, there's a lot to get to today, so why don't we...
Did you hear about our friend down south? Are you going to lead with that? One of the most legendary figures in Southern wrestling that never actually was a star in wrestling of all time.
I presume you're speaking about Buford Pusser?
Well, old Buford, as we used to call him down in these parts. Yes. Can you believe what has been announced about Buford Pusser? Do you want to tell the people?
I kind of know who he is. I've never seen the movie, either the original or the remake with Dwayne Johnson. I never saw either version.
No, but there was no remake with Dwayne Johnson. It was a movie titled the same and is a whole different person and different story and a whole goddamn thing.
Just like when he did the Black Adam. Very interesting. No, I did not.
Yeah, it just changed everything.
Yeah, it just changed everything. I did not see it, but I know who he is. I know that allegedly he was a wrestler, although I don't know if I've ever seen anything like with him on a card or anything.
Oh, well, they're actually Buddy Wayne, not the Seattle Buddy Wayne, but the Memphis original Buddy Wayne. And I say original because he was much older than the other fellow. He knew him. And Buford Pusser, for the kids out there who may have been laboring under a false misapprehension and consumption like you just were, Brian, that Walking Tall with The Rock was a remake about the same characters and etc. No, it was completely changed around. But Buford Pusser was the sheriff of McNairy County, Tennessee, and gained some notoriety in the state and, that northern Mississippi, that area down there, because it's toward West Tennessee. And then they made a movie about a very glorified version of his life. But that's where whenever Bill Watts would say, look at Hacksaw Duggan, he's walking tall with the 2x4 or whatever, there was a Buford Pusser reference. Because Walking Tall, the movie, it again magnified it. What Buford Pusser was known for legitimately in real life was more of potentially an oversized billy club, but they made it a goddamn just a 2x4 that he just carried around and just bashed up stills with and broke up bars and etc. But that was the Walking Tall, and he had so much problem with the criminals and the prostitution and the illegal gambling and the alcohol and the moonshiners that there were attempts on his life. And one of the big scenes in the movie is where people apparently, this is the way the story went, ambushed him while he and his wife were driving down the road with shotguns and whatever. And the way they portrayed it in the movie, it was like the lower half of his face was shot off. He was wounded in the chin somehow, but it killed his wife. And this was in like 1967. And now 60, whatever year, well, 50 some, almost 60 years later, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation came out with the news that based on new evidence and new investigations, Buford Pusser killed his wife and made up a story. And if anybody was still around and alive today, they would have sufficient evidence to bring charges and put the thing in front of a jury. Can you believe this? You don't have any idea, Brian, because you're not old enough, first of all. But if you've never seen the movie, especially in the state of Tennessee, the movie Walking Tall with Joe Don Baker, 1973 version, was a goddamn... People saw it multiple times. It was, the legendary Buford Pusser, blah, blah, blah. I saw it, as a matter of fact, at the drive-in when we were down in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, visiting my Uncle Harold in 1973. And you could hear in the drive-in from people from the cars, whenever he'd take the stick and beat up the bad guys, they're fucking cheering. It's like a wrestling crowd. And he was a big deal to the people of Tennessee and the memory of him, because he's been dead since the early 70s, I think. But anyway, so that was like that came completely out of left field, and nobody would have ever dreamed that. But you can't get away with anything anymore, even if you're Buford Pusser.
So he shot himself in the jaw?
Apparently, to make it look good. I mean, I know he might have learned about blading in the wrestling business, but that's going a little bit far. But no, because his whole story has been shot full of holes, and that either apparently she was shot outside the car, which completely contradicted the whole thing that he was saying, and blah blah, all this other stuff. But
Right after
they
Bonnie
made
and
it
Clyde came out.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But they made an official announcement about this. But no, the story always was that Buford Pusser had been a small-time pro wrestler, Buford the Bull, and in the Chicago area. That's, and then had come back home, I believe he was from Tennessee, to Adamsville, wherever the fuck he lived, and became sheriff of McNairy County. And then went through all this shit because there was a lot of backwoods hillbilly crime in that part of the state in those days. And then he started getting booked on the Goulas Welch wrestling shows as special appearance by or special referee. I've seen a number of clippings from the 60s of Buford Pusser being a special attraction there, because it wasn't that far from Memphis. And, in between Memphis and Nashville, everybody would have known who the fuck he was. But he was, if he had any real wrestling background, it could have been made up bullshit. Who knows with this guy now? But there was nothing on any level until he became sheriff, and then he would be asked to come to the shows and be a guest of some description.
I brought it up before because I think of a ambush, and I think of the end of Bonnie and Clyde, which was a big deal. Bonnie and Clyde it debuted in Montreal August 4th, 67, opened throughout the United States starting August 13th, 1967. Buford Pusser's wife was shot August 12th, 1967, the day before. That's crazy.
Well, it was like it was going around. It's like, remember back in the fucking 60s, you had about a 50% chance of dying in a quicksand fucking pool. Remember? Because all the TV shows, the movies, everything, they did some telethons and they've eradicated the problem now. But back in the 60s, yeah, about 50% of all deaths were caused by quicksand.
I hadn't even thought about that in a long time, but there were so many things with quicksand on TV when I was a kid. I still haven't encountered it anywhere in my life.
See, now that's because the world is a safer place now because, of the quicksand activists.
All right, well, Buford Pusser.
What, Pusser?
Pusser.
Boy, you are just a Yankee, just through and through. Our Buford Pusser.
Buford Pusser.
Buford Pusser, walking tall, by gum. He's walking tall.
Another legend taken down by his own actions after his death.
No, the actions he took were before his death. He was fairly inactive after his death.